Hello, my name is Randy Jamerson, captain with the Albemarle County Police Department, and today I'm going to share with you the information that was presented during the traffic safety town halls that were presented throughout Albemarle County over the winter of 2023. We're going to talk about different types of roadways, primary and secondary, so everybody understands that primary roadways are roads that we're referencing throughout this presentation. They're roadways under number 600 that are signed to these, such as 29, 250, and 240. We're speaking about roadways such as Seminole Trail, Rockfish Gap Turnpike, Abbey Road, Scottsville Road, Richmond Road, Louisa Road, Gordonsville Road, Stony Point Road, roadways such as those. Secondary roadways you'll hear us referencing, and they're road numbers that are 600 and above, such as 631, 743, 1520. So these roadways are such as Earlysville Road, Hydraulic Road, Ryer Road, Red Hill Road, Black Cat Road, Advanced Mill Road, roads such as those. And the difference between these two, primary roadways are often carry a higher volume of traffic, but also a higher speed, but not always in all cases. And secondary roadways are typically lower volumes of traffic and also lower speeds, but always not the same case as well. So when we talk about a secondary roadway, let's think about hydraulic road and the volume of traffic that's on hydraulic road being a secondary roadway compared to Plank Road or Old Lynchburg Road or Secretary Sand Road. So that would be the difference of what we're speaking about when we talk about these types of road systems. And also we'll talk about the functional classifications so everybody understands that the design of what these roads are for. And there's arterial, collector, and local. And there's a definition here or a depiction here of what these roads are intended to do. We'll also talk about urban roadways versus rural roadways. I'm sorry, rural roadways, and we'll speak about also the population in these areas as well. We'll talk about an urban area. We'll talk about the 29 corridor areas such as the Pantops community, Crozet community, Scottsville community, compared to rural areas such as Batesville, Stony Point community, areas like that. So I think we can all agree to what we're speaking of here when we talk about that. You know, the urban areas are likely to have more pedestrian facilities, public transit available. It's more commercialized compared to the rural areas that are likely to have less of that we spoke about previously. And this map here is just a depiction of the community showing really the 29 corridor, Abbey Road corridor, the Pantops corridor, stuff like that, to where we can visualize what we're referencing when we talk about urban versus rural when we talk about Albemarle County. So some of the things that Albemarle County are seeing on the roadways we're going to get to, but we also want to include some of the snapshot data from traffic stops and what is it that our officers are seeing on a regular basis. So during traffic stops, officers are seeing that the drivers that are being encountered, 75% are white, 20% are black, 3% are unknown, 2% are Asian. When we talk about sex, 59% are male, 41% are female. And we'll talk about age. You'll see the different numbers here on this pie chart. And I also want to make sure everybody understands that when we reference juveniles, you'll see there that they're at 3%. Juveniles, we're referencing drivers that are between the age of 16 and 17 years of age. Teens are 5% of the makeup here, and they are 18, 19, and 20 years of age. And then adults 21 and older make up the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. So one thing that's of interest to us here is if we include juveniles and teens, we're looking at 8%. And most of us would seem to think that it's reasonable to assume that most of our problems on the roadways are caused by young drivers or inexperienced juvenile drivers. And as you can see, that's just not accurate. It's 8%. Our problems are people, drivers in their 20s, drivers in their 30s, persons that tend to believe that they can multitask. They've been driving some time, so they feel like they are experienced. They feel like they can text, do conference calls, read books, read papers, play video games. I mean, these are the type of things that we see out on the roadways on a regular basis. And you can see why these age ranges are most problematic for us. So it's not necessarily the juveniles that we think are always the ones that are speeding or causing the problems on the roadways. And one thing that I think is important to explain or at least reference is if you think back to when we were younger and we were learning rules of the road and whatnot, a lot of times the car didn't move. Your parents did not move the car until you had your seatbelt fastened. So a lot of the problems we see with seatbelt usage tends to stem around older drivers. And the younger age of drivers were raised in a society where safety or seatbelt use was very common. It wasn't something that they had to learn. And I reference that because I also want to point out that message as it pertains to distractions. Our teen and juvenile drivers here are getting a lot of information at a very early age about the dangers of distractions and impairment and so forth, and speeding for that matter, um, as they're learning to drive or as they're going through the programs to obtain a driver's license. And what are we doing as a country that is much better, or as a society that is much better now than what it was, say, 10 years ago when we maybe didn't have the information or the data that supported these types of studies to show. So I think we're doing a really good job of reaching out to the young community as it pertains to safety on the roadways. But as you can see, I think we have some work to do as it pertains to our drivers in the 20s and 30s. Then we'll talk about residency. A lot of the folks that we're seeing on our roadways that are interacting with law enforcement, 52% are Albemarle County residents and 40% are not residents of Albemarle County. These are from other jurisdictions within Virginia, but not specific to Albemarle or out of state. And you see out of state is a low 8% there. But this 40% is a rather high number. And where do these, what's the makeup of this 40%? And what we seem to believe is that this is the vast majority are neighboring jurisdictions such as Greene County, Madison County, uh, Nelson County, Amherst County, Fluvanna, Buckingham, Louisa, Orange, jurisdictions that may be commuting through Albemarle County to other points north or south of us or east or west of us, or coming to work in Albemarle County or the city of Charlottesville. So just a little more than half of our interactions are local residents, but a lot of our interactions are also are coming from people that are traveling the roadways through Albemarle County. This is a slide that depicts crash data from 2016 to 2022. And you can see that since 2016, crashes have been trended downward in recent years, and fatalities have increased since 2016, but they have remained consistent since the year 2019. And one thing that's alarming here to me is this number at the bottom right, total fatalities of 97. And we're talking about crashes over this time period from 2016 to 2022 of being 14,250 crashes, but 97 of those being fatality crashes. And when you talk about 9 fatalities or 12 fatalities or 14 fatalities and so on throughout the course of a year, we don't think it's that big of a number. But when you combine these years and we talk about 97 lives that have been lost on the roadways of Albemarle County over the past 5 to 6 years, that's alarming. We also understand from reviewing our data that many of the crashes are a result of negative driving behavior, such as speeding, distractions, impairment. 18% of these crashes can be attributed to distracted driving, 16% to speeding or excessive speeding, and 6% to some form of impairment. When we talk about fatal crashes, we're talking about seatbelts. 62% of all fatal crashes involve the deceased not wearing their seatbelt. And we're talking about not necessarily drivers, but passengers also. And this excludes pedestrians and motorcycles. We're not even speaking of those. We're talking about persons inside of an automobile. 62%. So that right there just screams at us that your chances of not surviving a significant car crash are greatly increased just by not wearing your seatbelt. 32% are a result of excessive speed, 23% to some form of impairment, and 13% to distracted driving. Another thing that I want to point out is that all of these numbers that we're speaking about are on the low end. We certainly feel that these numbers are higher. I don't know how much higher, but I do believe that they are higher because these are only numbers that we're able to prove through our reports. And looking at the data, we feel like we certainly miss out on some of the information being accurate. So we do think that it's a lot higher. This slide talks about crash frequency, and we're excluding I-64, but it's a review of the top 13 roadways in Albemarle County that cause us the most concerns. And these are roads that we frequently target for those specific reasons, whether it's speeding, distractions, impairment, and so on. But I'll give you an example, and I'm not going to go through every one of them, but it gives you an example of the 7-year average of what we see with crashes, the total crashes during the time frame from 2016 to 2022 that we're highlighting here, the annual average daily traffic count, and then the percentage of crashes that resulted directly from speeding, distraction, or impairment. And again, I would just highlight that these numbers we think are low. We don't know every single crash. We can't prove that it was speed related, and these are things that we actually could prove. So we definitely agree that the numbers are much are higher. So what do we do about these problems that we just highlighted? So the traffic unit within the police department consists of 5 officers, and their primary duties are to just make our roadways safer. Now, obviously, there's additional officers that are here at the police department that take on this task as well. But I'm speaking of the 5 officers that do this on a daily basis. And during this time frame of 2022, they conducted 27 traffic safety initiatives that were geared directly towards negative driving behaviors, such as speeding, distracted driving, impairment, and not wearing seatbelts. Over 1,800 traffic stops were made during this time frame by the traffic unit. In total, the agency conducted 10,607 traffic stops in the year 2022, which was an increase of 112% from the previous year. The traffic unit also conducted 79 speed studies at different locations throughout the community. And what we reference in when we talk about speed studies is gathering data. We're putting out equipment that will capture speed of vehicles, direction of travel, classification of the vehicles, day of the week that we're seeing the most problems on the roadway. We look at this data, we share this data with VDOT and our community development partners, but we look at this data to determine where we should focus our efforts as well. So the next few slides are going to depict a heat map that's going to show where we're seeing the most problematic areas. And when this presentation was presented, we selected these roadways based on the geographical location of where we were doing the town hall so we could highlight some of the problematic areas. This one references Ryer Road, and you can see at the heat map that most of our problems are occurring from really the K-Tech community area or Dunlore area towards Route 29. And a lot of traffic signals in there. Think of the traffic volume that's in this area. So probably a lot of the reason why we're having the crashes there as well. When we talk about signals, we're talking about why we're seeing crashes at signals. We're talking about a variety of things, but we're talking about stop and go traffic. And when you increase volume into that, and then you interject driver error into these types of things, such as following too closely, somebody not paying attention, and the traffic light signal turns yellow when the person decides to stop, which is definitely the right thing to do, is to stop at the signal when it turns red. And the person who's behind them, it may not be the first, second, or third car behind them, but as the vehicles start to slow down behind them, it eventually catches up to that person who's not paying attention. We end up with a rear end crash, which is one of our most commonly seen crashes throughout Albemarle County. But on Rye Road during this time frame, again, we're speaking from 2016 to 2022, we're seeing an average of 63 crashes a year, and it shows that we have 56 in the year 2022. 4 fatal crashes have occurred on this roadway, and it shows you the average daily traffic count roughly of just under 18,000. Then we'll talk about Hydraulic Road. Averages 43 crashes a year. We have 43 in the year 2022. Fortunately, 0 fatalities have occurred on this roadway from 2016 to 2022, and an average daily traffic count of just under 16,000. And again, you can see the heat map depicting problems that we're seeing during those along those intersection routes there that are most problematic, closer to the 29 corridor. Scottsville Road averages 81 crashes a year. We saw 74 in 2022, 9 fatal crashes during this time frame, and an average daily traffic count of 8,000 vehicles. And you can see this heat map depicts our most problematic area being around the interchange with Thomas Jefferson Parkway, Mill Creek Drive. And again, we could think, well, why is that? And there are problems along Scottsville Road with crashes as well, especially down around the Red Hill area, Red Hill Road area along Scottsville Road, with a variety of factors there. But if you really think about what's going on up here near the interstate, we're talking about merging traffic. We're talking about the volume of traffic that's coming off of Thomas Jefferson Parkway onto Scottsville Road. And the same thing I would say is occurring around Mill Creek, around that area, just due to growth and development, and there's more vehicles on the roadway. Richmond Road averages 134 crashes per year, 113 in 2022, 4 fatal crashes over that time frame. And again, you can see from the interstate into the Charlottesville city limits is the most problematic area. And again, I would say that's where we see most of our signals. That's also where most of our volume is as well. And again, which leads to most of our problems. Rockfish Gap Turnpike, 53 crashes, 54 in the year 2022, 1 fatal crash, and an average daily traffic count of just under 9,000. Abbey Road, 61 crashes per year, 2 fatal crashes, average daily traffic count of just under 11,000. And again, the heat map is indicating the most problematic areas there, as you can see, largely around the Abbey area, the bypass interchange area. And then Monacan Trail, 82 crashes per year, 77 in 2022, 6 fatal crashes, an average daily traffic count of just under 22,000. And the most problematic areas being between Red Hill Road and Plank Road. So what do we do about this? We also talk about traffic safety being everyone's responsibility. The police department cannot police every roadway in Albemarle County 24 hours a day. It's impossible to do. But we do use a collaborative approach to engage in the community and the stakeholders to address local traffic safety issues. So we want to share with you where we're seeing our problems. We want to share with you what these problems are. And we want to ask you to be a better driver. We want to ask you to devote your time and attention to driving. When you're driving a vehicle, it requires 100% of your attention 100% of the time. We also use the 3 E's: education, engineering, and enforcement, to make our roadways safer. We partner with VDOT and community development and the community to foster positive change and interaction so that all of our roadway users are safe while they're on the roadway. So going forward, we would just ask that each of you take the time to respect other drivers on the roadway, be mindful of the dangers of what can occur on the roadway. You can be doing everything perfect on the roadway and be involved in a crash that was not your fault. So not only should you be responsible as a driver, we also that you be defensive as a driver and prepare for the unexpected and drive defensively. And we want everyone to arrive at their location. We want everyone to be safe, and we want to be able to share the roadways together. Thank you for your time.